Hi, I'm Connor. This will be a video on how to set up a L2TP VPN on the Edge RouterX. A VPN is just an encrypted tunnel either between a client and a server, or a server to server, which is usually called a site to site. This will be set up as a server. I will be using L2TP, although it would be better to use OpenVPN. I have used a tutorial on Ubiquity's website. I will link it in the description below. For the tutorial, I did set up the Edge RouterX in its basic configuration, and I did change a few things like the IP address for the switch 0, just so it will work for demonstration. So it will work within my network, but typically it would be connected to the internet, not connected to a local network as the WAN port. So we'll have to set up a WAN port as well. In my case, E4 is my WAN. This is using DHCP from the router for the rest of the house. And so we are going to go into the configure it. I am using SSH to get into the router. To start configuring, you do have to first type configure, and then we're first going to start with firewall rules. So most of the firewall rules will start off with set firewall name. The WAN_local is set up by default as one of your firewall rule sets. We will just be adding some rules within that rule set. The first one we will do is for port 500. The tutorial I use does have rule 30 as the name. You can actually name it as anything as long as it's not something that's already listed in your router. But set up by default, there shouldn't be anything listed as rule 30. So first we will have the action set to accept. So the rule will accept all these connections coming in. We'll describe it, describe port as port 500. We will disable logging. We'll use a protocol UDP. The next rule is for EPS. This one doesn't have a port number, but it is a protocol that can be used. EPS stands for Encapsulation Security Payload. So like the previous one, we assign a number for the rule set. The action is accept again. We do a description. This one is EPS. Be able to disable the log, and the protocol is EPS. The next one, the same thing. This one we used 50. Action is set to accept. Description, destination port is 4500. And then again, we'll disable log, and protocol is UDP. And then for the fourth one, again, we assign a number for this rule. This one is 60. Action accept. The description is L2TP. Destination port is 1701. And the IPsec, we're setting that to match IPsec. And the protocol UDP. We're going to disable logging. The next is authentication. So we're going to set, in this case, the secret for the VPN, for the connection coming in. So we'll have to do set VPN L2TP remote access, IPsec -settings, authentication, mode, preset key, and then you basically do that almost that exact same one, but you take out the mode and put password at the end. Of its case, I put YouTube. You should use a more secure password. Router is not going to be connected to the internet. It can be reset after this. And then we have to set the user as authentication mode local. And then we need to set the username. I used username of Connor and then password. You can, of course, use strong passwords, especially if it's connected to the internet. You can use a Radius server. I didn't in this one. I don't have a Radius server as well, which is also why I didn't set it up as well. Now we're going to set the IP address range that the VPN clients are going to use. The DHCP server will be giving these addresses out when after that connection is established. And we do have to make sure that the range is outside of the regular DHCP range. I picked 9 addresses, and it happens to be in the same subnet as the main router. So, like if you set it up in Unify, by default, Unify will set it up as a completely separate subnet, which you could do with this too, and then do firewall rules, whether or not it can communicate to the other side of the network. The next one is DNS. Just like a standard DHCP, you need the address range, you need DNS, and it will do the gateway by itself. In this one, I chose Google DNS as the first one, and I chose router for the second one. The router does relay DNS requests. You can use it here as well. After that, we will set up the WAN interface that will accept L2TP requests. Last time when I set it up, when my WAN port was connected to the ISP did have DHCP, so I set it up as a DHCP. This particular time, I'm also setting it up with it attached to the rest of the network, which also has a DHCP. Well, so I set it up as the WAN port having a DHCP. A DHCP interface would be my WAN port is on ETH4. You can set it up as a static IP address or PPPoE. Next would be the IPsec interface, and that one's also my WAN port, which is ETH4 in my case. You can set up a maximum transmission unit, the MTU. Most networks do have a 1500 MTU. VPNs, I noticed, typically use 1400. With an MTU, you do have to set your maximum transmission unit lower than other devices that have it. In most cases, if you're doing it between a computer and a router or a switch, you can actually put your computer as a lower MTU, but not a higher one. It will cause fragmentation. Your computer will not be able to connect. And then finally, we will save our work. So we commit and save. And if you have the web interface open, you do notice that it did restart. Here's the iOS one. I did set it up previously, so all I really did at that point is enter in the pre-shared key and the username and password. For server name, when setting it up, you do have to put the IP address of your WAN port. And then as the pre-shared key, we do have to put the key that you had within the VPN settings. In my case, I put it as YouTube, and then username and password. And now to set up Windows. We click Windows button, and we go to Settings, and then Network, VPN. You would add a VPN. We go built in. The VPN provider is built in, then we name it. The server name is the IP address of the WAN port. The VPN type is L2TP reshared key. And then we'll put the reshared key. Save. Then we're going to click down arrow. Advanced options. More VPN properties. Go to security. Click allow these protocols. Make sure MS Chat version 2 is selected. Thank you for watching the video. You know, if you want to twirl on anything else, comment in the have a comment on anything you want me to try and do. See you later.